If there was any pretense left of order or civility in Congress, it went out the window today when a group of House Republicans barged into the secure room where the Pentagon's top official in Ukraine was testifying in the impeachment inquiry, holding up proceedings for hours, demanding access to the closed-door sessions where only members of the three committees overseeing the inquiry have been allowed.
It's finally reached a boiling point where members just said they are so frustrated at the idea that they can't be a part of this and see what's going on. And so we're at a standstill here.
But while Republicans attack the process, Democrats are fighting to keep focus on the content of the inquiry, especially after yesterday's testimony from acting ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, in which he confirmed he was told Trump was holding up security aid, at least in part, until Ukraine publicly announced investigations into 2016 election interference and into the Bidens. But once again, reaction was split largely down party lines.
I've been in there for 10 hours. I can assure you there was no quid pro quo.
In my 10 short months in Congress, this is my most disturbing day in Congress so far.
You can't just commit a crime and say that you didn't and then expect it to go away.
Or can you? Joining me to discuss are James Rappaport, former chair of the State Republican Committee and director of the New Boston Fund. Jim, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Gautam Mukunda is a Harvard Kennedy School fellow, author of Indispensable, When Leaders Really Matter. Gautam, it's good to see you, too. So call me naive, Jim Rappaport, but I'm reading the testimony yesterday from Taylor, and I said, this is the smoking gun. This will cause a lot of Republicans who respect the Constitution to shift their position. I was wrong. Why?
You're wrong for a variety of reasons.
Why?
Because, first of all, this is just kind of a deep state type thing going on, one. And two is this is such a kangaroo court. It's not open. You don't know the rest of what was said. It's taken out of context. Leaks have been coming from the Democrats basically to help them, as opposed to what the Republicans have done, which is put the whole...
You mean not open, sort of like the Benghazi hearings with Trey Gowdy when he chaired them, and they were closed to the public too?
No, they actually
they
released them
early on,
and then they released them,
just as the Democrats say they will here. Let's take one thing at a time. How about the deep state allegation here?
The deep state is a particular political science phenomenon that exists in Turkey. If you start talking about it in the United States, you're basically saying I don't understand either the term or the American government. Those are your options. That's it. Taylor is a distinguished public servant, a Vietnam veteran, someone who's spent his entire adult life serving his country. While the President of the United States came down with bone spurs, he was actually doing his duty. So it's amazing how Republicans.
Well, by the way, is it not true?
It is, but it's also not relevant to the conversation.
Jim's just desperate to slander anyone who sort of goes against his orange god. But let's be honest, right? This is astonishing.
Again, that's another kind of slander. He's not an orange god. He is a human being. He has foibles. I wish that there were things that he didn't say. I like the judges. I like things that he's done.
Let's leave all the epithets aside. Let's do this for a minute.
It would be nice if you actually acted like an adult.
If I may, I am theoretically in charge here, even though that's questionable. Let me just read you one provision, one excerpt from Bill Taylor's 15-page opening statement. Ambassador Sondland, a big-time Trump supporter, by the way, which say to the tune of $1 million, also told me he now recognized he had made a mistake by earlier telling Ukrainian officials to whom he spoke that a White House meeting with President Zelensky was dependent on public announcement of investigations. In fact, Ambassador Sondland said everything was dependent on such an announcement, including security assistance. I mean, on its face. By the way, the Republicans who came out, like Mark Meadows, we just played, didn't say, I don't believe him. He just said there's no quid pro quo. Is that not the law school definition of quid pro quo? You may not believe it, but isn't it?
First of all, everything in foreign, when you're talking about foreign aid, is quid pro quo. We give money for things. Like, for example, when Clinton said to Majors, not Majors, to the Prime Minister of England, buy Boeing. I mean, those are the kinds of things that goes on all the time.
Well, I don't know if that happened, but you do know that when you ask a foreign leader to help you in an election, that's a violation of law. It's not just.
And whether it was, it was not for the future elections, for the past election. This is a man who has been set upon.
Joe Biden is in the so-called quasi-transcript.
But it wasn't about Biden. It was about getting the
servers. The lie here is not terribly subtle. When we do a quid pro quo with another country, we do it to pursue the interests of the United States as a whole. It is obviously in the interest of the United States for Boeing to get contracts from other countries. It is not in the interest.
It would help his election, is what he said, by the way.
It is not in the interest of the United States for the President of the United States to push an American ally to make up fake information to slander one of his opponents. And I just want to note one thing about the sort of crazy scene you saw in the House, Jim, because it is important. The room that the Republicans barged into is called a SCIF. It's a secure compartmented information facility. If you have ever been inside a SCIF, you know that you may not ever bring in electronics. You may not bring in your cell phone.
Well, they actually tweeted from inside.
They brought that in. It is nothing. I cannot imagine anything more on brand for the House Republicans than sacrificing the real security interests of the United States in order to get a show on television.
So even though you're not wavering, Jim, Mitch McConnell to me, and I am become almost a student of the majority leader's words, majority leader's words. Here's Mitch McConnell being asked a question about Trump's, quote, perfect phone call with the president of Ukraine. Here it is.
The president has said that you told him that his phone call with the Ukrainian president was perfect and innocent. Do you believe that the president has handled this Ukrainian situation perfectly?
We've not had any conversations on that subject.
So he was lying about that?
You have to ask him. I don't recall any conversations with the president about that phone call.
You know, I have to say, up until, and by the way, John Thune, who's in leadership, also said something like it was not a good, the picture was not a good one coming out of the Taylor hearing.
Absolutely.
But when McConnell says something like that, McConnell's usually closed mouth saying, I don't discuss the conversations I have with the President of the United States. Am I wrong in reading a little bit of a crack there where the guy may be a little troubled with the president of his own party?
Listen, I don't think it was a perfect phone call by any stretch of the imagination. I also don't think it was the smoking gun that the Democrats had. Look, Congressman Green put it the best. I mean, the reality is the Democrats are hell-bent on impeachment because they know they can't beat him at the ballot box next year. They've got a weak team that's running, and that's why they're doing this.
Well, by the way, they're not doing this. It's not, you say the Democrats, the American people are moving too. Here's, let me, if I may, here's the most recent CNN poll. 50% support not just impeachment, but from removal in a CNN poll. That's up 3 points in a month, 6 points in several months, and 13 points since late April of this year. But the flip side is 90% of Republicans support President Trump, a record level for virtually any incumbent. That's part of the reason why the Republicans are staying the course, no?
Well, I mean, if the only thing you care about is your political interest, I think that is actually an understandable move. It's worth noting when you say that 90%. The Republican Party is also smaller in terms of their people's affiliation with it than it is in the last 20 years or so. So the reason is people who are alienated by Trump are leaving the Republican Party at a
They're
pretty
actually more leaving
rate.
the Democratic Party. So, that's the reality.
Can we go back? Can we take a totally different tack? Because I have a feeling that we're not going to agree on this part of this. I think we may agree. I think we may agree on this. It's harkening back to something you both said in the beginning. Here's Stephanie Grisham, who's the press secretary for the president, who holds no press conferences. But here's the statement. President Trump has done nothing wrong. This is a coordinated smear campaign from far-left lawmakers and radical unelected bureaucrats waging war on the Constitution. Let's just take the last few words. Radical unelected bureaucrats waging war on the Constitution. The radical unelected bureaucrat waging war on the Constitution yesterday was a guy who went to Vietnam in 1969, Taylor, has dedicated 50 years of his life to public service. Is it not a problem? Forget impeachment. Is it not a problem when the president's spokesperson demeans somebody who has given his, by the way, in his party, to public service? Is that not a precedent that troubles you, Jim Rappaport?
I'm not happy with some of the language that comes
out of Washington. How about that
language?
language?
I would have to know who she was actually talking about. Whether
well, it was right after Taylor's testimony. She's obviously talking about Taylor.
There also have been others, like the gentleman who, the quote-unquote whistleblower, who they now aren't going to even bring into
Is it
the
a
picture.
problem?
Of course it's a problem. The move that Trump is making and the Republicans are following on is to delegitimize any form of opposition. Let's note that Donald Trump has called the people who are investigating him, and investigation and oversight is part of the Congress's constitutionally mandated duties, traitors. Right? He has said that people like the whistleblower, and again, whistleblower protections are enshrined in law because they are how we make sure that people like Trump don't get away with what they want to get away with. He has called for the death penalty for the whistleblower. This is language that if it was used in another country, we would view with the greatest alarm. The President of the United States is demonizing his opponents in a way that we have not seen in more than a century.
Okay, let's get back to impeachment and a Democrat who's been talking about impeachment other than the ones that have been in the news most of the time. Here are a couple tweets from that Democrat. October 10th, it's becoming a challenge to keep up with the high crimes and misdemeanors. October 3rd, responding to a video of the President asking China to investigate Biden. Someone should inform the President that impeachable offenses committed on national television still count. There's increasing speculation almost every day now that with with concerns amongst moderates about Joe Biden, even though his poll numbers are dramatically up nationally today. Elizabeth Warren is allegedly too far to the left. You know the whole argument. There's an opening for Hillary Clinton to run yet again. What's your reaction?
Please.
I knew you'd say that. We'll get to you in a second.
This is largely a smokescreen by the Republicans who are trying to conceal the fact that in every single poll that's taken, every leading Democratic candidate crushes Trump. It's not even close. It's 10-point margins for Biden and Warren, who's supposedly so far to the left, and yet still 10 points up. White House fever is incurable. Everybody knows it is the most contagious disease known to man. And Hillary Clinton ran for the White House, and she thought she was going to get it. And I'm sure she feels a desire to run, but she's not going to run. She knows she has no chance. She knows it's too late. She knows there are plenty of people that if you were going to support her, you would support anyways in this primary.
There's someone salivating over here. Why don't we get to him? So what's your reaction?
The reality is that she's not going to get in. It's way too late for her. There's no money left for her. And,
how do you react to what he said, though? It is true. The top several Democrats are crushing Donald Trump in polls.
They were crushing him a year out in 2016. They were crushing him 3 weeks before the election in 2016. He's going to have significantly more money than they have. He'll be fine.
So the obvious counter-argument to that, of course, is 2018, where the Republican Party got curb-stomped quite spectacularly.
And by the way, they were showing it.
Yeah, and the polls show it here, too. Now, what actually happened in 2016 is quite interesting, right? Donald Trump got a smaller fraction of the popular vote than Mitt Romney. He drew an inside straight in the Electoral College. That happens.
That's how we decide elections.
That's how we decide elections. Yeah. In the critical swing states in which he was able to do that last time, he is really, really far behind right now.
On that note,
a problem for him.
We've got to leave it. Gautam, it's good to see you.
Always
Thanks
good,
so much. Jim Rappaport, pleasure,
see you too.
as always.